Genetically enhanced super soldiers, the muscular humans were humanity's last hope against the Barzan Empire's relentless onslaught. Jake Bryant gripped the control yoke of the cloaked rebel ship Deliverance, his knuckles white, his jaw clenched. A dire transmission crackled through the comm system, the encoded rebel frequency carrying news that turned Jake's blood to ice. The Barzans neared completion of a planet-scale terraforming station, a monolithic engine that would cement their stranglehold on the sector and drive out the last pitiful remnants of free humanity. Extinction loomed, a tightening noose around mankind's neck. Jake exchanged grim looks with his squad, each muscular enhanced and honed for a lethal purpose. Demolitions, infiltration, tactical assault. They all heard the unspoken truth in that message. Defeating this station was their sole priority now. The survival of their species hinged on this desperate mission. Projected on the main screen, the orbital schematics painted a grim picture. A fortress of 100,000 Barzan troops, a 20-meter-thick shell of self-healing polymer alloy, and at its heart, the atmospheric processors that would transform the planet and spell doom for humankind. Hijack a freighter, infiltrate by stealth, and blow the station's core, taking out those processors and the entire cursed structure with them. It was barely a plan, more akin to a suicide pact. But the Musculars would do what they must. They always had. Passive scans picked up a strange flicker from the world below, a titanic labor camp where conquered aliens slaved to build their own demise. And within those electrified fences, a single spark of defiance. Odin, a proud alien warrior, stoking the flames of rebellion. Soon the paths of these unlikely allies would cross, the humans and the slaves, in a collision that would alter the very shape of the galaxy. But first, the Musculars had a station to destroy. The cloaked rebel ship Deliverance shuddered as it approached the massive Barzan terraforming station. Jake Bryant glanced at his muscular squad mates, their faces etched with fierce dedication. They all knew the stakes. The survival of free humanity depended on the success of this desperate mission. Initiating docking sequence, Rip announced, hands flying over the control console. The ship jolted as it connected with the commandeered supply freighter. Jake stood checking his pulse rifle. Crash, Rip, with me. We're hitting the processor core. Ghost, you and the others raise hell. Buy us the time we need. Ghost nodded, a predatory glint in his eye. We'll give those Barzan bastards a distraction they won't soon forget. The two teams split up as they boarded the station, moving with the lethal grace their enhancements afforded. Jake led his group deeper into the fortress, cutting down Barzan troopers with ruthless efficiency. The deck plates shuddered as distant explosions signaled Ghost's team going to work. Progress was brutal and bloody. Every meter gained paid for in sweat and enemy blood. Alarms blared and blast doors sealed around them, the Barzans adapting to their intrusion. Jake cursed as he glimpsed a familiar figure on a security monitor. Commander Talaxians, the Barzan's infamous tactician. The mission just got harder. Odin stood in the alien labor camp, eyes fixed on the fireballs blooming across the orbiting station's hull. The human rebels were fighting for their lives up there. His fists clenched, a low growl building in his chest. It was time. Brothers! Sisters! Odin roared, his voice carrying across the encampment. Our would-be masters bleed and burn this day. Now is our chance. Rise up and let us forge our own destiny. A chorus of roars answered him as the aliens surged forward, a tide of righteous fury. They overwhelmed the guards, seizing their weapons and shuttles. Odin smiled grimly as he punched the launch sequence. The Barzan station awaited. Jake and Crash fought like demons, carving a path to the atmospheric processor core. Talaxian stood before them, flanked by his elite guard. Pulse bolts filled the air as the chamber dissolved into a brutal close-quarters brawl. Muscles straining, blood dripping from a dozen wounds, Jake and Crash pushed forward, their enhanced bodies handling punishment that would kill a normal human. They were Musculars. They would not fail. Crash fell, a smoking hole in his chest. Jake roared in anger, slamming into the Barzan line. He had to reach the core, had to set the charges, for humanity, for his fallen brothers. Just as the Barzans threatened to overwhelm him, the chamber shook with a new wave of explosions. Odin and his rebels poured in, guns blazing. The Barzan line crumbled. Jake limped to the core, slamming down the detonator. He had minutes at best. Dragging Crash's broken body, he staggered towards the hangar, a trail of blood marking their retreat. The rest of the team fell in around them, holding off the Barzan counterattack. They piled into a battered freighter, Ghost at the controls. The engines roared to life, the ship clawing for open space. Behind them, the processor core detonated, a miniature sun blooming at the station's heart. The blast washed over them, alarms screaming as Ghost fought to keep the ship under control. The rebels watched, exhausted and blood-soaked, as the Barzan station crumbled under its own weight, belching flame and debris. It was a victory, but the cost had been high. Jake looked around at his battered team, at the alien rebels who had risked everything to aid them. The Barzan Empire would not forget this blow. The war was just getting started, but for now, they lived to fight another day. The battered freighter limped through space, its hull scarred and engines sputtering. Inside, Jake Bryant slumped against the bulkhead, his enhanced muscles aching from exertion. He surveyed the cramped cabin, taking in the grim tableau. Crash lay unconscious on a makeshift cot, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Rip hunched over the navigation console, one arm hanging useless at his side. The alien rebels huddled together, tending to their own wounded. Ghost's voice crackled over the intercom. "Jake, we've got problems. Fuel's critically low, and I'm detecting multiple hull breaches." Jake hardened his eyes. "Options?" Odin stepped forward, his alien features set in purpose. "There is a place, Zephyr's Respite, a haven for those who wish to disappear." "Sounds perfect," Jake muttered. "Set a course, Ghost." The freighter shuddered as it approached the space station, a sprawling construct of interconnected modules and docking arms. As they neared, a cold voice cut through their comms. "Unidentified vessel, state your business." Jake leaned towards the mic. "We seek refuge and repairs. We can pay." A pause, then, "Proceed to docking bay 7. They disembarked into a bustling corridor, a cacophony of alien languages assaulting their ears. A striking figure awaited them, tall, lithe, with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to pierce right through Jake. "I am Zephyr," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You've made quite a mess out there." Jake met her gaze. "We need repairs, medical attention. Name your price." Zephyr's lips curled into a predatory smile. "Oh, I have something in mind. A Barzan convoy will pass nearby soon, carrying metacrystals. Secure that shipment for me, and we have a deal." Jake glanced at his battered team, at Crash and Rip being loaded onto hover gurneys. He nodded grimly. As the wounded were whisked away to the medbay, Jake gathered the able-bodied rebels. They huddled around a holographic display, studying the convoy's projected route. "We'll need to hit them hard and fast," Ghost said, pointing out key tactical positions. Odin nodded. "My people know Barzan tactics. We can predict their movements, create an opening for your Musculars to strike." They planned late into the night, a fragile alliance born of desperation and shared purpose. Unbeknownst to them, a figure lurked in the shadows of Zephyr's Respite. Commander Talaxians, his face hidden beneath a hooded cloak, eavesdropped on snatches of conversation. His scarred hands clenched into fists as he recognized the rebels' voices. Talaxian slipped away, finding a secure comm terminal. He input a series of codes, his fingers flying across the keypad. A cruel smile twisted his lips as he sent the message. The trap was set. Days later, Jake stood on the bridge of their hastily repaired ship. Ghost piloted them towards the convoy's projected path, while Odin coordinated with his fighters via encrypted channels. 2 minutes to intercept, Ghost announced. Jake checked his pulse rifle, adrenaline surging through his enhanced body. "All units, prepare to engage." The stars outside blurred as they dropped out of hyperspace. The Barzan convoy loomed before them, a dozen heavily armed ships escorting a massive freighter. Jake opened his mouth to give the attack order, but Ghost's shout cut him off. "Multiple signatures incoming! It's a trap!" Barzan warships materialized around them, weapons already charging. Jake's mind raced, searching for a way out of this deadly ambush. The comms crackled to life, filled with the panicked voices of human and alien rebels alike. The battle was about to begin, and the fate of their fledgling alliance hung in the balance. Jake gritted his teeth as the Barzan warships materialized around them. "All units, evasive maneuvers! Push through their lines!" The rebel fleet scattered, engines flaring as they dove between the enemy vessels. Pulse cannons lit up the void, and Jake's ship shuddered under the assault. "Rip, crash, breach their defenses," Jake ordered. "Ghost, you're with me. We're going for the main transport." The muscular soldiers launched from their ships, their enhanced bodies propelling them through space. Rip slammed into a Barzan cruiser, his fists denting the hull. Crash blasted holes in the enemy formation with his heavy weapons, clearing a path. Jake and Ghost's team, along with Odin's alien fighters, slipped through the chaos. They latched onto the convoy's cargo ship, cutting their way inside. "We're in," Ghost reported, "searching for the metacrystals." A deafening roar filled the comms as a massive shape uncloaked beside them. Jake's blood ran cold as he recognized the dreadnought's silhouette. "Talaxians," he growled. The dreadnought's cannons opened fire, decimating the rebel fleet. Jake watched in horror as Allied ships disintegrated under the barrage. "Ghost, status on those crystals?" Jake demanded. "We've got them, but we're cut off," Ghost's voice crackled with static. "That dreadnought's tearing us apart." Jake saw Crash take a direct hit, his massive form tumbling through space. Odin's fighters swarmed to retrieve him, but Jake knew the wound was grave. He made his decision in an instant. "Ghost, get everyone out of here. I'll draw their fire." "Jake, no." "That's an order." Jake cut the comm and rocketed towards the dreadnought. His augmented muscles strained as he slammed into the warship's hull, punching through layers of armor. Alarms blared around him as he fought his way deeper into the behemoth. Jake glimpsed the reactor core through a shattered bulkhead. He fired his pulse rifle, overloading the containment field. As klaxons screamed and emergency doors sealed, Jake allowed himself a grim smile. Ghost watched from the fleeing rebel ship as the dreadnought erupted in a chain of explosions. The blast wave buffeted them, nearly tearing their battered vessel apart. In the cargo hold, Odin cradled Crash's broken body. The muscular soldier's breath came in ragged gasps. "You fought well," Crash managed. "We're not so different, you and I." His eyes glazed over, and Odin bowed his head in respect. Ghost's voice came over the intercom, tight with emotion. "Jake bought us a window. We're limping back to Zephyr's respite." As the crippled ship lurched into hyperspace, the surviving rebels mourned their losses. They had won a victory, but at a terrible cost, and they all knew this was only the beginning. The Deliverance limped through space, its hull still bearing the scars of battle. Ghost stood at the viewport, his reflection haunted and gaunt. Behind him, the surviving rebels moved about the ship in hushed tones, the weight of their losses hanging heavy in the recycled air. Rip paced the corridors like a caged animal, his massive frame vibrating with awe-inspiring rage. His fists left dents in the bulkheads as he passed, a physical manifestation of his grief and fury. "We should strike back now," he snarled, cornering Ghost in the command center, "while they're still reeling from Jake's attack." Ghost met his gaze unflinchingly. "And what? Throw away more lives? We need to regroup to think." Rip's face contorted, but before he could retort, Odin's calm voice cut through the tension. "Your friend speaks wisely. Vengeance without purpose is hollow." The alien stood in the doorway, his stoic presence a stark contrast to Rip's terrifying violence. Behind him, a small group of his people huddled, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Ghost nodded gratefully to Odin before turning back to the nav console. "Set course for Zephyr's respite. We need repairs, and we have a debt to settle." The space station loomed before them, a sprawling construct of metal and shadow. Zephyr herself met them at the airlock, her iridescent skin shimmering under the harsh lights. "I see you've weathered quite a storm," she purred, eyes lingering on their battered forms. Ghost stepped forward, producing a small, pulsing crystal. "As agreed. Now about those repairs." Zephyr's smile was predatory as she examined the metacrystal. "Of course. But I'd suggest a hasty departure once we're done. Word travels fast in this sector. Days blurred together as the rebels prepared for their next move. In a small cargo bay converted to a memorial chamber, they gathered to honor their fallen. Ghost stood before the assembled group, Jake and Crash's ashes contained in simple urns. "We commit their remains to the void," he intoned, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "May their sacrifice light the way for those who follow." As the ashes scattered among the stars, Odin approached Ghost. "Your people's ways are not so different from our own," he said softly. "We, too, honor our fallen warriors." Ghost nodded, a newfound respect blooming between them. The truce that had begun in desperation was slowly transforming into something more. Their departure from Zephyr's respite was hurried, the newly christened Deliverance still creaking from hasty repairs. Ghost laid in a course for the hidden resistance base, nestled deep within an uncharted nebula. It was during their journey that everything changed. Alarms blared through the ship, sending the crew scrambling. Ghost burst onto the medical deck to find chaos. One of the alien children lay convulsing on a bed, its small form racked with spasms. "What's happening?" he demanded. The ship's medic shook her head. "Some kind of neurological cascade. Their physiology, I've never seen anything like it." Odin pushed through the crowd, his face etched with worry. "It is a sickness that plagues our young. Without our world's sacred waters, they cannot—" His words trailed off as Rip shouldered his way into the room. The massive Muscular took in the scene, his eyes narrowing. To everyone's shock, he began rolling up his sleeve. "You need compatible genetic material," he growled. "Use mine." The procedure was grueling. Rip's enhanced blood slowly filtered into the alien child's system. Hours passed, the tension palpable. Finally, miraculously, the convulsions ceased. In the days that followed, a change came over Rip. His rage seemed to ebb, replaced by a quiet tenacity. He spent hours in the medical bay, watching over the recovering alien children with an intensity that surprised even Ghost. As they approached the coordinates of the resistance base, Ghost found Rip staring out at the swirling gases of the nebula. "I can't go with you," Rip said without preamble. "Not yet." Ghost raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Rip turned, his face uncharacteristically vulnerable. "These kids, these families, they need protection. Someone to teach them to fight back." Ghost studied his old friend, seeing the profound shift in his demeanor. He nodded slowly. "Do what you need to do. We'll be in touch." As the Deliverance docked with the hidden resistance base, Ghost felt the weight of command settle fully on his shoulders. Jake and Crash were gone, and now Rip was charting a new course. But as he looked at the determined faces of his human and alien comrades, he knew their fight was far from finished. In the heart of the base, plans were already forming. A daring strike against the Barzan shipyards, a chance to cripple their war machine at its source. Ghost's mind raced with possibilities, knowing that this time, brute force alone wouldn't be enough. The nebula swirled outside, concealing them from prying eyes. For now, they had a moment to breathe, to plan. But the fires of rebellion were spreading, and soon the galaxy would feel their heat. Ghost stood before the holographic display, his eyes scanning the intricate schematics of Krios 7's shipyards. The blue glow cast harsh shadows across his face, emphasizing the new lines etched there by recent losses. "The outer defenses are formidable," Talon said, zooming in on a cluster of orbital platforms. The elite strategist's fingers danced across the controls, highlighting key targets. "But if we can slip past them, the internal security relies heavily on their AI network." Odin leaned forward, his alien features creased with concentration. "My people know stealth. We can guide your ships through the sensor grid." Ghost nodded, then turned to address the gathered strike team. Humans and aliens stood side by side, united by shared purpose. This isn't just about crippling their war machine. It's about showing the galaxy what we can do together. He activated a comm channel. "Rip, status report." The massive Muscular's face appeared on a nearby screen, the background filled with alien children undergoing treatment. "The kids are stabilizing. I've got our new recruits running combat drills. We'll be ready when you need us." Good, Ghost said. Keep them safe. We'll be in touch. As the channel closed, a commotion erupted near the entrance. 2 guards escorted a woman into the command center, her wrists bound by energy cuffs. Despite her disheveled appearance, her eyes burned with defiant intelligence. Zara, Ghost said, stepping forward. Welcome to the Resistance. The tech genius raised an eyebrow. Quite the operation you've got here. I assume you didn't break me out of Hellgate for the ambiance? Ghost deactivated her restraints with a gesture. We need your expertise. The Barzan shipyards are protected by the most sophisticated AI network in the Empire. Zara finished, already moving to the holographic display. Her fingers flew across the interface, bringing up lines of code. I've been studying their systems for years. Give me access to their mainframe, and I can turn their own defenses against them. Talon frowned. And we're supposed to trust you? After what happened on Titan? Zara's eyes flashed. I made mistakes, but I'm here now, risking everything. You want to cripple the Barzan war machine? This is how we do it. Odin placed a hand on Talon's shoulder. She speaks truth. Without her aid on Zephyr's respite, my people would not be here. Ghost studied Zara for a long moment, then nodded. You'll have your chance. But remember, one wrong move, and you'll wish you were back in that prison colony. As final preparations were made, Ghost found himself staring at the urn containing Jake's ashes. He picked it up, feeling its weight. We could use you out there, old friend, he murmured. A hand touched his arm. He turned to see one of Odin's warriors, her silver eyes filled with understanding. The fallen fight with us still, she said softly. Their strength becomes our own. Ghost nodded, setting the urn down. He squared his shoulders and strode towards the hangar where their stealth ships waited. The infiltration team boarded their vessels, a mix of sleek human craft and organic-looking alien designs. Ghost took his place at the helm of the lead ship, with Zara at the navigation console and Odin's guerrilla fighters readying their weapons. As the hangar doors slid open, revealing the swirling purple nebula beyond, Ghost opened a channel to all ships. This is it, he said, his voice steady. Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment. For Jake, for Crash, for every being who's suffered under Barzan rule. Let's show them what happens when we stand together. The engines flared to life, and the rebel fleet surged forward into the unknown. Ahead lay Krios 7th, the Empire's shipyards, and a chance to change the course of the war. But as they entered stealth mode and began their approach, Ghost knew the true challenge was only beginning. Ghost's hands tightened on the controls as Krios 7 loomed before them. The massive shipyards sprawled across the planet's orbit, a tangled web of construction docks and defense platforms. Initiating stealth protocols, Zara announced, her fingers dancing across the console. The ship's engines shifted to a low hum as adaptive camouflage engaged. Odin's warriors tensed, gripping their weapons. One of them, a lithe female named Lyra, peered at the sensor readouts. Their outer defenses are formidable, she whispered. Not for long, Ghost replied, his voice grim. He opened a secure channel to the rest of the strike force. All units, prepare for Phase 1. A burst of static, then Rip's gruff voice came through. Diversion team in position. Just say the word. Ghost nodded to Zara. She took a deep breath, then activated her intrusion program. Lines of code flashed across her screen as she probed the shipyard's AI network. I'm in, she said after a tense minute. You've got a 60-second window. Make it count. Ghost didn't hesitate. Rip now! On the far side of the shipyards, a series of explosions blossomed against the void. Alarms blared as Barzan ships scrambled to respond. In the chaos, Ghost's stealth craft slipped through the gap in their sensor coverage. They landed hard on a maintenance platform, the ship's cloaking field flickering as it absorbed the impact. Ghost was first out the hatch, pulse rifle at the ready. Move, he barked. Odin's fighters sprinted for the control hub, their alien physiology allowing them to outpace even the enhanced humans. Ghost, Talon, and the Muscular troops fanned out, laying down suppressing fire as Barzan's security forces converged on their position. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone as energy weapons discharged. A muscular named Forge let out a roar, charging headlong into a squad of Barzan troops. His massive fists sent armored bodies flying like ragdolls. Ghost ducked behind a pillar as return fire peppered his position. He glanced at Talon, who was coordinating fire teams with practiced efficiency. "How long?" Ghost shouted over the din. Talon checked his chrono. 40 seconds until their systems reboot. Inside the control hub, Zara's fingers flew across holographic interfaces. Sweat beaded on her brow as she raced against time. Come on, she muttered. A proximity alarm blared. Odin spun, raising his weapon as the door began to slide open. But instead of Barzan troops, a familiar hulking figure squeezed through the gap. "Rip," Zara gasped. "What are you—" "Less talking, more hacking," the muscular growled, taking up a defensive position. Zara nodded, refocusing on her task. Lines of code reflected in her eyes as she delved deeper into the Barzan network. Suddenly she grinned. "I'm in. Initiating system purge now." Throughout the shipyards, lights flickered and gravity plating faltered. Incomplete vessels tore free from their moorings, colliding with each other in a cascade of destruction. Zara's fingers continued their frantic dance, sowing more chaos with each command. Ghost's team fought their way to a fabrication center, planting demolition charges on critical equipment. Forge ripped a defensive turret from its housing, turning its weaponry against the Barzan forces. "Fall back," Ghost ordered as the charges timers ticked down. They sprinted for the exit, Talon providing covering fire. An explosion rocked the facility, catching Talon in its blast radius. The strategist crumpled, his armor scorched and smoking. Ghost scooped up his fallen comrade, grunting under the weight. "Zara, status!" "It's done," her voice crackled through the comm. "But Ghost, the reactor cores are destabilizing. This whole place is going to blow." Alarms blared as the shipyards began to tear themselves apart. Ghost made the call. "Odin, get our people out of here. Zara, you're with them." "What about you?" Zara demanded. "Someone has to hold them off," Ghost replied, his voice steady. "Now go." As Odin's team raced for the evacuation point, Ghost and the remaining Musculars formed a defensive line. Wave after wave of Barzan troops crashed against them, but the enhanced humans stood their ground. A massive figure strode through the smoke and debris. Ghost's eyes widened as he recognized the infamous Barzan commander. "Talaxians," he breathed. The Barzan's eyes burned with hatred as he raised his weapon. Ghost braced himself for the final assault. Ghost's vision blurred as he stared down the barrel of Talaxian's weapon. The Barzan commander's finger tightened on the trigger. A deafening explosion rocked the platform. Talaxian stumbled, his shot going wide. Ghost seized the moment, tackling the Barzan and sending them both sprawling. "Ghost!" Rip's voice boomed through the comm. "Move your ass! We're leaving!" Talaxian roared, struggling to throw Ghost off. The human commander smacked his head into the Barzan's face, then rolled away, sprinting for the evacuation point. The shipyard was coming apart around them. Ghost leapt over fallen debris, dodging gouts of flame and sparking conduits. He rounded a corner to find Rip holding the hatch of their escape craft. "About damn time," the muscular growled, hauling Ghost aboard. The ship lurched as it detached from the dying station. Ghost stumbled to the cockpit, where Zara's hands flew across the controls. "Hang on," she warned. "This is gonna be rough." The view outside became a blur of twisted metal and explosions as Zara threaded their craft through the disintegrating shipyard. Ghost gripped the back of her chair, his fist clenched. "We're clear," Odin called from the sensor station. Ghost felt the ship accelerate, putting distance between them and the inferno that had been Krios 7's orbital facilities. He allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before reality set in. "Casualty report," he ordered. Talon's face was ashen as he looked up from his datapad. "It's bad, sir. Most of the Musculars didn't make it." Ghost closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. He'd known the cost would be high, but this... A proximity alert jolted him from his thoughts. "Multiple contacts," Odin reported. "Barzan pursuit craft." "Of course," Ghost muttered. Zara, get us to the rendezvous point. Odin, what's our weapon status? Before the alien warrior could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as systems began to fail. We're hit, Zara shouted. Engines are failing. We're drifting. Ghost steadied himself against a bulkhead. Options? Zara's fingers danced across her console. The Mavra Nebula. It's our only chance to lose them, but... Do it, Ghost ordered. The view screen filled with swirling purple gases as they entered the nebula's outer fringes. The pursuing Barzan ships hesitated, then plunged in after them. Visibility shot, Odin reported, but I'm still picking up energy signatures. They're closing in. Ghost's mind raced. They were damaged, outgunned, and nearly out of options. Weapons? Talon shook his head. Offline. Then we make our stand, Ghost said, his voice steady. Prepare to repel boarders. The remnants of the strike team readied themselves, checking weapons and sealing armor. Ghost took up position near the airlock, pulse rifle at the ready. Tense minutes passed. Then, without warning, new contacts appeared on sensors. More Barzan? Zara asked. Odin frowned. No, these are different. Wait, I'm picking up a transmission. Static crackled over the comm, resolving into a familiar voice. Should have known you'd need saving again. Ghost's eyes widened. Rip? The massive bow of a ship emerged from the nebula's haze. Ghost's jaw dropped as he recognized the legendary vessel. Is that? Talon breathed. Ghost nodded. Thunderchild. The ship's hangar bay opened, revealing a figure Ghost had never expected to see again. Rip stood there, arms crossed, a cocky grin on his scarred face. You coming aboard, the Muscular called, or are you going to float there all day? As Ghost's team scrambled into Thunderchild's hold, he saw familiar faces mixed with new ones. Odin's people, transformed by muscular treatments, the children they'd rescued, now battle-ready, and at the center of it all, Rip, somehow larger than life. The hangar doors sealed shut as Thunderchild's engines flared to life. Ghost felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet as the ancient ship surged forward, leaving their pursuers far behind. He turned to Rip, questions forming on his lips, but the Muscular held up a hand. Later, Rip said. Right now, we've got work to do. The Barzan are pissed and Talaxian's still out there. You up for round 2? Ghost looked around at the battered but determined faces of his comrades, human, alien, and everything in between. A slow smile spread across his face. Let's show them what we can do, he said. Ghost stood on Thunderchild's bridge, surveying the assembled team. Faces both familiar and new looked to him for direction. Rip's hulking form loomed nearby, a reminder of how quickly the situation had changed. Zara's voice cut through the tension. I have a plan, she announced, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and trepidation. We strike at the heart of the Barzan Empire itself, Calamar Prime. A murmur rippled through the gathered rebels. Ghost raised an eyebrow. That's suicide, he stated flatly. Maybe, Zara conceded, but it's our best shot at ending this war. We infiltrate the Imperial throne, assassinate the Emperor, and I unleash a virus to seize control of their shipyards and orbital defenses. Rip grinned, all teeth and battle lust. I like it. Hit 'em where it hurts. Ghost's tactical mind whirred, considering angles and contingencies. Talaxians will be expecting something like this. He's no fool. Odin stepped forward, his alien features set in unshakable focus. My warriors can provide a diversion, an open assault to draw attention while your team infiltrates. For a long moment, Ghost weighed the enormity of what they proposed against the slim chance of success. Finally, he nodded. All right, let's do it. The next hours were a flurry of preparation. Ghost handpicked his infiltration team, a mix of augmented aliens and the toughest human survivors. Zara pored over schematics, refining her viral package. Rip coordinated with the renegade pilots who would fly them in under stealth. As they approached Calamar Prime, tension coiled in Ghost's gut. The planet loomed before them, a jewel of a world overflowing with defenses. He could make out the silhouettes of massive battle stations and the glint of orbital shipyards. Entering stealth mode, the pilot announced. Ghost felt the subtle shift as adaptive camouflage engaged. They slipped past the outer defensive grid, riding the wake of Odin's diversionary assault. Alarms blared across Calomar's surface as the feint drew Barzan forces away from the palace. Ghost's team touched down on a maintenance platform, mere kilometers from the Imperial throne. They moved swiftly, neutralizing guards with brutal efficiency. Zara's hacking cleared security lockdowns, allowing them to penetrate deep into the palace complex. The throne room doors loomed before them. Ghost signaled, and shaped charges blew them inward. The team surged through the opening, only to find themselves face-to-face with Talaxians and a phalanx of elite guards. "Welcome," the Barzan commander sneered. "I've been expecting you." Ghost's mind raced. This was a trap. The Emperor was already gone. Before he could shout a warning, disruptor beams lanced out. Several of his augmented warriors crumpled, their enhanced physiology overwhelmed. The air filled with weapons fire and the clash of metal on metal. Ghost ducked and weaved, his pulse rifle spitting death. Beside him, Zara frantically worked to breach the throne's AI defenses. "It's no use," she shouted over the din. "The security is too strong." Talaxians laughed, a cold and mirthless sound. "Did you really think it would be so easy? I've drawn you out, and now I'll crush you once and for all." Ghost gritted his teeth, preparing for a last stand. But then Rip's voice boomed across the comms. "Not today, you bastard." A young Barzan female stepped into view, her eyes wide but determined. Ghost recognized her as the governor's daughter they'd rescued from the slave camps. She raised her hand, revealing an ornate sigil embedded in her palm. Understanding dawned on Ghost as Rip linked his suit to the girl's life signs. The Imperial bloodline encoded in her DNA was the key. Systems throughout the palace began to malfunction as Zara's virus took hold. Talaxians barked orders, his troops suddenly fighting to contain the spreading chaos. "Ghost!" Rip's voice crackled. "We need to go, now!" They fought their way back through twisting corridors, the palace literally coming apart around them. Flames licked at their heels as they sprinted for the extraction point. A stray disruptor blast caught Rip in the back. The massive Muscular stumbled, shielding the Barzan princess with his bulk. "Go!" he roared, his voice thick with pain. "Get her out of here!" Ghost hesitated for a split second, torn between duty and loyalty. Then he scooped up the girl and ran, Rip's labored breathing fading behind them. They piled into the stealth craft, Ghost doing a rapid head count. His heart sank as he realized how many they'd lost. As they pulled away from Calamar Prime, the virus's effects became clear. Orbital platforms fired on each other, their targeting systems haywire. Capital ships drifted aimlessly, their crews locked out of control systems. Ghost stared out at the chaos, his expression unreadable. They'd struck a blow against the Empire, perhaps a mortal one. But the cost? He looked at the faces of his surviving team, each bearing the weight of what they'd endured. The Barzan princess huddled in a corner, her eyes haunted. Ghost knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "What's your name?" She looked up, tears streaking her alien features. "Lyra," she whispered. Ghost nodded, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Lyra, we've got a lot of work ahead of us." Ghost's words to Lyra hung in the air, heavy with unspoken promises. The moment shattered as alarms blared through the ship's corridors. Zara's fingers flew across her console, her face pale in the flickering emergency lights. "Multiple incoming vessels," she reported, her voice tight. "Barzan pursuit craft. They're closing fast." Ghost gritted his teeth, surveying the battered remnants of his team. "Status report." Odin's scarred face was grim as he looked up from a sparking damage control panel. "Engines at 30%. Weapons systems offline. We're limping." A familiar voice crackled over the comms, dripping with malice. "Did you think you could escape so easily?" Talaxian sneered. "I will hunt you to the ends of the galaxy." Ghost's mind raced, weighing their dwindling options. The ship shuddered as disruptor fire grazed their hull. He locked eyes with Zara, seeing the cold calculation in her gaze slowly give way to something else, a flicker of raw emotion. "We can't outrun them," she said quietly. "But I have an idea. Ghost nodded, trusting her judgment. Do it. Zara's fingers danced across the controls, plotting a new course. The ship groaned as it changed direction, accelerating towards a distant point of light. What are you doing? Odin demanded. Saving us all, Zara replied, her voice filled with unshakable focus. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a massive structure looming in the darkness of space. An ancient stellar weapons platform, its surface etched with strange, alien script. By the gods, Odin breathed. Is that? A relic of the old wars, Ghost confirmed. Talaxians must have reactivated it. Zara's eyes never left her console. He's overridden the command protocols. That thing has enough firepower to obliterate entire systems. Understanding dawned on Ghost's face. And his first target? The Mavra Nebula, Zara said softly. Our sanctuary, everyone we left behind. The ship rocked violently as another volley of Barzan fire found its mark. Warning klaxons screamed as systems failed across the board. Ghost steadied himself against a bulkhead, his mind made up. Plot an intercept course, he ordered. We're going to ram that thing. Odin's eyes widened. You can't be serious. We don't have a choice, Ghost cut him off. It's us or everyone in that nebula. The alien warrior nodded grimly, moving to assist Zara with the calculations. Ghost turned to address the rest of the survivors, including the shell-shocked Lyra. This is our last stand, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. We may not live to see what comes after, but we can ensure there's a future worth fighting for. The doomsday weapon loomed larger in the view screen, its massive cannons beginning to glow with building energy. Ghost took his place at the helm, hands gripping the controls. Hold on to something, he warned. The ship's engines screamed in protest as Ghost pushed them beyond their limits. The Barzan pursuit craft fell away, unable to match their suicidal velocity. Talaxian's voice rang out one last time, a howl of impotent rage as he realized their intentions. Ghost allowed himself a grim smile. See you in hell, he muttered. The weapons platform filled their view, growing impossibly large. Ghost could see the individual nodes of its targeting array, the swell of plasma building in its main cannon. Time seemed to slow. Ghost thought of Rip, of the sacrifices that had led them to this moment. He thought of the children in the Mavra Nebula, of the future they might still have. We choose to burn, he said softly. The words were echoed by Odin, then Zara, spreading through the ship like wildfire. We will not comply. We rebel. The doomsday weapon fired, a lance of unimaginable energy lashing out. But it was too late. The rebel ship slammed into the platform's core, a David against a cosmic Goliath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe turned inside out. Ghost's last conscious thought was of fire, of light brighter than 1,000 suns, of an explosion that would echo across the stars, a final act of defiance against an empire built on fear. And then there was only silence.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.